Do you wonder why your child is still struggling to read after years of being in school? Stick around, that's what I'm talking about today. Hi, I'm Rebecca with the Parent Teacher Bridge, where you can find the ideas and resources you need to empower you to become your child's most influential teacher. And today I'm talking about why children are still struggling to read even though they've had several years of school. Before we begin, make sure you click like and subscribe. And along the way, if you have a comment or a question, please add that to the comment section below. Let's begin. So, why might you still have a child who is struggling to read, even though they've been to kindergarten, they've been to first grade, they've been to second grade, they're now in third grade, which, if you think about it, that's already their fourth year of school. 4 years, 180 days, being there 7 to 8 hours a day, and they're still struggling to read. Let's think about that. Okay, so here are some of the ideas. Lack of continuation of phonics instruction. Maybe some phonics were taught early on, but not some of those phonics rules that you need for longer words. Lack of reading practice, where the child gets the opportunity to apply those rules of phonics instruction to the books they are reading. And too much time with a focus on grades of getting an A, getting a B, getting a C, not getting a D or an F, instead of improving on things like phonics, the accuracy of their reading, and even the fluency of their reading. Now, what goes on in a teacher's classroom is that teacher is bound to those grade level specific standards. So if they are a third grade teacher, they are bound to teaching third grade standards because it's all about the end of the year test. Whereas maybe back in the day, if you had children in your class that came to you and they were seriously deficient in second grade skills, you might could dip into the second grade skills and help them out a little bit more. So when I'm talking about having a struggling reader, here are some of the behaviors that they will display, and maybe you notice some of these with your own child. Substituting or saying the wrong word, skipping words, or maybe even an entire line of words and not even really noticing it, giving no attention to the punctuation and not pausing when you see a period or whenever it is appropriate. The inability to break a word down into smaller chunks or syllables. And just a general lack of understanding about specific phonics rules, such as the soft C or the soft G. The fact that some letters or letter combinations can make more than one sound in certain scenarios. If they have never heard these rules and practiced these rules, then they're not going to know how to apply these rules. So let me paint a picture for you. Your child might be in second, third, or fourth grade, and they've been struggling to learn how to read. The teacher's been trying to help them, help give some ideas, but you've got the end of the year testing that's going to be coming up. The teachers have been told they must prepare. In some schools, the teachers are even told things like you can or can't make a copy from this book or that book, or you can only make so many copies of papers within a week. There are certain restrictions that are placed upon the teachers, not only with the materials they can teach from, but also with their time, and they just don't get around to doing what it is that needs to be done. What I'm seeing as I work with children that are in both private and public schools is that they are getting overly tested, and it's not really helping overall to improve their reading capabilities. And not only that, some of these children that are truly struggling are just seeing these low grades each and every week. And what is that telling them about their own self perception of intelligence or their own capability? As you can imagine, if you went to your job and week after week you got bad marks and it was shown to you right in your face and it was shown to the people that you love, how would you feel about that job? Of course, you would hate it. How would you feel about your capability of doing that job? Of course, you would start to wonder, can I really do this? I'm not really good enough. But if you will start to notice in your child's graded papers, you will see how there is a tradition of only giving these tests and assignments on Fridays over and over and over. You've got a reading test on Friday, you've got a spelling test on Friday. And for whatever reason, there are so many parents that are still truly, truly, truly focused on spelling. I guess it's because they have a general list of words and they feel, oh, yes, I can do that. I can help my child get a good grade on the spelling test. So they have something in front of them that's explicit. You just have to memorize this and study it. However, in the whole scheme of things, learning to be a better reader is more important than learning to be a better speller. The children are struggling with words that have 3 or 4 syllables. The children are lacking a true systematic instruction of how to learn to read using syllable types and how to divide those words into syllables. The child is deficient in vocabulary. So let's think about it. If a parent is doing all that they can between supper time and a proper bedtime, and they are trying to have their child succeed before Friday's tests because they don't want their child to come home with D's and F's, they might have reading get pushed to the back burner because they're going to be focused on trying to study those spelling words or trying to study for that social studies test or that science test, which really in those early grades just isn't as important. It is more important that they learn to read. They can always learn those other things later or just learn them through discussion and read aloud type books. But that's not what I'm seeing. I'm seeing the second graders, I'm seeing the third graders getting tests for things like science and social studies, and it's just sucking away so much of their school day. Well, if you think about their time at home, they only have that time between supper time and bedtime. If the parent has been told there will be a test on Friday, that's what the parent is going to give time toward. And there are 2 ways of reading that they will need to practice if they're a struggling reader, especially. And one of those is having the child read aloud to the parent so that they can practice those skills of what do I do when I come upon a word that I don't know, so that the parent can help them learn to not do things like skip over a word, guess a word by its first letter, or skip a line of words. And the other type of reading that needs to happen is that the parent needs to be able to read books aloud to their child. It often helps if it can be a book that is a little bit too hard for the child to read on their own, because then you know that child is going to be exposed to certain vocabulary. It's so much easier for a child who has heard the word before to figure out that word when they are one day reading it on their own than if they had never heard the word at all. So both of those types of reading aloud are important. So what can you do? Number one, parents, just have a can-do attitude. You don't want to waste all of your time hounding the school or hounding the teacher and trying to tell them how to do their job. After all, like I mentioned before, a lot of them, their hands are tied. And maybe your child did end up with a teacher that's not doing their job right. But again, if they're not doing their job right now, they're not going to do it any better if you just sit there and hound them either. So take matters into your own hands. And one of the first ways that you can do that is you can get your child involved with an explicit phonics instruction program. That means that they are explicitly teaching them the rules. They're not just waiting and assuming they're going to get it with just more and more reading practice. They are telling them, this is the situation where these letters make this sound, or this is the situation where we need to divide the word into syllables this way. There are multiple programs that you can find online. I'll link some in the description below. You can do these at home if you want. You can work through them slowly on the weekend, through the summer if your child needs some catch up, or during the week. Now, if you are one of those overwhelmed parents who are just trying to keep your child's grade up, don't ever skip a weekend without truly having some reading practice with your child. I realize you may not be able to sit down for an hour straight, but use a Saturday to say, okay, we're going to have breakfast and we're going to practice reading some. And then we may try it again midday, and we may try it again later on in the day, and just have some sort of reward system set up for your child for motivation purposes. Finally, I have to be honest, if your child is in their 4th year of school, which is 3rd grade, or even their 5th year of school, and they are still struggling to read, you have got to take matters into your own hands. And your child may need some one-on-one instruction. They may need instruction in a smaller group. That for you, that may look like getting a tutor. That may look like getting them into some special reading program after school hours, or it can even look like taking your child out of school for a while and homeschooling your child. When you homeschool your child, you don't have anyone else telling you this is how much you have to test each week. You have to prepare this evening for your social studies test and the next evening for your science test. You can just prioritize and say, we need to work on reading first until you become an independent reader, and then we can move on and give a little bit more attention to the other subjects. Now, there are parents out there who will agree with me. They have walked that road, and that is exactly what they have done. If you do consider homeschooling, you're going to want to check out my survival guide for the new homeschool family. I'll leave a link for that in the description below. But that is absolutely free. Also, I have a few tools on my website that you may want to check out. My Reading Handy Helper, truly, truly handy if you are reading with your child and you're not sure what you can say other than just sound it out. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're probably thinking, well, I wasn't trained in how to be a teacher. But if you go back enough in history and you read stories about people who learned how to read or they self educated themselves, they probably didn't learn from some teacher that went to a 4-year college either. I mean, basically, if someone knew how to read, they could help someone else along, helping them learn how to read. And so much of the time that is true. Yes, we do have about a fifth of our population who is dyslexic, and they may need a little bit more organized program, but those are in abundance. You can find those online. Never in history have we been at this point where it has been more convenient. So I can't encourage you enough to develop an I can attitude and realize that your child can get customized one-on-one instruction from you, and they just don't get anything like that in a school setting. Now, remember, parents, if you will step out of your comfort zone, you can really experience some growth. There are tons of parents online who are willing to sit with you, do an online chat with you, and help you through the process if you are nervous about getting a tutor, putting your child in a program, or even homeschooling them. Remember, you're the one that's looking out for your child, and you are your child's most influential teacher. Be sure to leave a comment down below. If you have a question, you can ask me a question. Go check out my website, click like and subscribe, and have a wonderful day.